Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union. Invested in you've got a phenomenal episode coming up for you. First, a shout out to my friends here in town at Chief of Staff Kansas City. My guest is not in Kansas City. We'll talk about where he's at in a moment, but whether you're in KC, in Cleveland, that's where he is at, around the country. If you're in the market for a job, looking to hire someone, looking for a great resource, check out my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City. Why? I don't get anything out of it, but great partnership with them because they believe in people, they believe in culture, and really love doing everything with them. So check them out, chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. One of the really good local connections that I've made, but with certainly national and even international appearances on stage, is Jessica Best, and really gotten to know her very well, a recent guest. And I always say to guests, hey, who should I have on this show? And that led me today to a guest who is a trailblazer, who doesn't just challenge the status quo, he lights it on fire and hands you the match. His name is Joe Pulizzi, an award-winning B2B strategist who has been rewriting the rules of business for 2 decades and counting. Known as the Godfather of Content Marketing, Joe is a serial entrepreneur, philanthropist, and a 10-time best-selling author whose latest work, Burn the Playbook, is a blueprint for freedom on your own terms. Because if the world the rules were written for no longer exists, it's time we stop playing by them. And as I was thinking about that and Joe's latest book, I thought, boy, isn't that kind of true for sort of everyone and everything that's going on in the world right now? I'm happy right now to be joined by Joe Pulizzi. If you're watching us on YouTube, you will see that he made it very clear that he is in Cleveland with the CLA on the jacket, the CLE on the hat. And as I told you beforehand, Joe, I got nothing against Cleveland. I get to go there twice a year for baseball. I love Cleveland. Not this time of year maybe, but how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here. The introduction was fantastic. I appreciate it.
Well, the introduction comes from my executive producer, Ashley, who does such a good job putting all that together. Not that I can't write. She does a better job and always brings out the best in people, but that's not a hard thing to do with you. And I sit there and I look at the work that you have done, and I just want to go back to where it started, because the work you're doing right now is so far ahead of most people. I feel like that the average person is understanding that in business, in life, that what you do is important. But there's so many of us, certainly in maybe our age range, like those Gen Xers, maybe older millennials, that might first be stumbling upon this. How did you figure all this out when you did, and how are you so far ahead of the curve?
Well, I don't know if I'm ahead of the curve, Joe, but I think I got lucky because I started at a publishing and media company called Penton Media, which is downtown Cleveland. At that time, it was the largest independent media company in the world, and they did print magazines and newsletters, and they were leading in events. So they were a really traditional media company. And I was put in this little division called custom media. And what we were supposed to do was work with the Microsofts and the Parker Hannifins of the world and large B2B companies and help them tell better stories through print for their own magazines. And then it went on to their own podcasts and their own webinars and things like that. We were trying to help them tell their own story. And I started to look at what was happening. Google was just coming out at the time. And then we started to go right into social media. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we are going to see a huge change, because building an audience is not just going to be for media companies. It's not just going to be for television or radio. Every company is going to have an opportunity to tell their own story. And you know what? They're going to have to. They want to be found in Google. They want to build an audience on social media. They want to, then once you build an audience, you can do amazing things if you have a great story to tell. And what I learned, Joe, was that most companies were just horrible at telling stories. Mm-hmm. They really good at talking about their products and services, really bad at talking about, who's my audience? What's important to them? How do I serve them and give them better information? If I do that, they'll know, like, and trust us. And by kind of being in that initial stages of media, I'm like, oh my God, everybody's going to be a media company. And I realized that early just because I was put into that position. And then my whole career for the last 26 years has been about how do we help businesses tell better stories so they can connect with audiences, whether that's for, they want new customers, or they want to keep customers more loyal, whatever it is, and actually change people's lives through information, not just their products and services.
In some ways, what you're talking about has gone on since the beginning of time, right? I mean, I always like to tell people that, because I'll have people say to me like, oh, you're such a good storyteller. And I'm like, everybody is a storyteller.
Yep.
Now, some are better than others, some are worse than others. I've been lucky enough to have had a TV platform for 30 plus years. And my early years in television were on local news. And even when I was doing sports, you were going out to the high school and telling the story of the kid, whether it be the star athlete or whether it be the under the radar kid or the kid that just overcame adversity and all those type of things. That'll never change, whether you're on television, whether you're talking about your company, whether you're talking about your family, like whatever it is, we all have a story to tell. To me, what's changed, and I agree with you that I mean, you didn't say these words, but there's an art to storytelling, and some are better than others, and some need to learn how to tell but they do have a story to tell. But to me, what's changed more than anything is where we're telling them, right? I mean, like, go back to, I think we're probably around the same age or close to it. And like, when I look back, I wanted to be on TV when I was a little kid. I could not have told you I was hosting a podcast. I could not have told you about what my social media followings are on and on. None of that existed at this point, right? And so storytelling never goes away. Selling your business never goes away. But how we're doing it has changed, or where we're doing it, I should say. Like, as a society, where are we? Like, I would imagine that the Gen Z and maybe the millennials, they've got a better grasp on this than say our age range for the most part. Certainly boomers and we got 4 generations in the workplace right now. It's a different world. What do you make of that?
Well, I think first of all, when you can just talk about storytelling, if you've ever asked somebody out on a date, you know how to tell a story, right? Or if you're married, if you have a significant other, you've told stories, right? Yeah. So we can all tell stories, but you're right. The ability to tell stories has never been easier. I mean, when I started in traditional publishing, it cost a lot of money for audience acquisition. You grew up in television. All the equipment and everything you have. Now we see content creators that are out there that, to your point, are 18, 21, 25 years old. They're located anywhere in the world. All they need is a phone. If they have the phone, they can build an audience on TikTok. They can do it on YouTube. They can do it with a podcast. They can write books. You can literally do it a dozen different ways, and it's never been easier. And that's why, by the way, if you look at the business models of traditional media, where we both come from, whether it's television stations or whether it's traditional print media or newsletters that are or newspapers that are breaking down all over the place, it's been disintermediated because everyone can do it now. And I think that's the thing. It's just a couple things that you have to learn. Most people are like, oh, I'm going to tell stories because things that I'm interested in, which is a great place to start. But what you want to realize first is, who am I talking to? Who is the person, and what are their informational needs, or what are their pain points, and what keeps them up at night? And it's the storyteller that focuses on that that's going to be successful. And that's where, when we talk to a lot of companies, especially starting, if they don't understand the idea, if you've never heard the term content marketing before, it's fine. But basically, instead of interrupting my customers with, hey, here's an ad, here's my product, you should buy it, it's, I'm going to deliver something valuable to you. And if I do that over and over and over again, maybe you'll start to trust me, and then maybe you'll buy my products and services. So that ends up looking like, oh, I'm going to send them a newsletter on a regular basis. So they're going to listen to my podcast, or I've got a show on YouTube, or they see my shorts on TikTok, those types of things. And a lot of people never thought, it's like, oh, sales, I've got to sell my product and service. I love the soft sell. I'm just going to build a relationship with you. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to deliver amazing information to you and not ask anything in return. But then when you're looking for, let's say you're an HVAC and you've been listening to all these energy tips from your local HVAC company, and all of a sudden you need a new boiler. Who are you going to go to first? You're going to go to the one that's been giving you energy tips all along. So I think that's where it takes a little bit longer. You're not going to get that direct sale. But if you have that as ingrained as part of your company culture, that, hey, we're just going to help our customers when they don't need our products and services, I think that's where it hits most home. And that's why you're seeing almost every company out there try it. Joel, they dabble in it is the problem.
Yeah.
They don't take themselves. They feel they have to be everywhere on every channel, and you actually don't. You could just pick one. Like, don't be jack of all trades, master of none. Just pick something you're good at. If you feel you're really good at writing, do a newsletter to your customers. If you feel you're really good on radio, do a podcast to your customers and focus on something that they need to hear on a regular basis.
I had a couple thoughts pop into my head. One is for the younger audience. What's a magazine, Joe?
You know what, Joel? Believe it or not, I was at an event yesterday. I spoke at an event, and there was a couple entrepreneurs that are starting print magazines. And I was like, oh, my goodness, because, of course, we're all online. The average person is the average adult spends between 5 and 7 hours a day on their phone, on social media. But we're starting to see a group of people say, hey, I need that offline experience. I want that lean back technology that you get from print. I want to go to an in-person event because I want to meet people. I want to experience life. Human relationships is where it's all about. So I like that we're seeing a little bit of a rebellion against that always on mentality of I got to be in my phone or I got to be on the computer all the time. Yeah.
And just the way those magazines are different. The successful ones now are marketing to specific people. They're sending those out sometimes for free. It's advertising based. I know some good companies that are still running magazines. You do have to have a digital footprint, but to your point, let's see, maybe the pendulum is swinging back another way. The pendulum always swings back and forth. So we'll see.
Look at a company like Red Bull. Red Bull has Red Bulletin magazine. If you go to any airport, you'll see they're selling it. They send it directly to their customers. It goes out to about 2 million people. It's all about, living on the edge and taking risks, and it fits in really well with their brand, and it's a print publication. My kids growing up, I got 2 boys now, they're older, 22 and 24, but when they were kids, they always waited for Lego magazine, and it was about what other kids are doing with Legos. That stuff is fantastic. We can all do that, but it just depends on what your story is. So there's an opportunity there.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about as you were talking about it, and to me, this is a reminder that you've got to be able to pivot and evolve while still telling your stories, is if I go back to before the pandemic, the thought, you talked about just having all you need is a cell phone. The thought of any television network allowing their people to use their cell phone was it was beneath them. And then in the pandemic, I'll just speak for myself, where we were limited to access. We could not, I never once in the shortened season of 2020 or the full season of 21 didn't travel with the team. And I never was in a locker room. First time in my life. We had to rely on any moment pulling out that phone and doing whatever we could. And suddenly it was like, oh yeah, we'll take the content. It's better than nothing. And then, I'm speaking, for the higher ups, but then suddenly it looks pretty good. Wait a minute. These cell phones actually are better quality sometimes than the television equipment because they're new, they're updated. And we did a story, I could go on and on about this, but we did a story last year at whatever they're calling it now. I think it's Oracle Park, San Francisco. And we did a story for our pregame show that we never would have been able to do before because it would have taken extra resources and money and time and overtime out of town. But with a couple of cell phones and a couple of wireless microphones, my broadcast partner and myself and our producer went out there and we shot a whole segment in a kayak on the bay looking for home run balls during batting practice. One of the best things we did all year. Could never have done it before. This has never been, you got to learn how to do it, right? But
that's right.
It's all sitting there right for us. So my question to you is this: that was a TV thing, fine. But anyone has the ability to do this. How do you differentiate yourself?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head on when somebody says, how do I be successful in this whole thing? There's actually 2 keys to it. The first thing is, and you brought it up, differentiation, and I call it your tilt. What is the thing that separates your message above all that other clutter? And we haven't even talked about AI content yet, Joel. There's so much more AI content. People call it AI slop. Doesn't matter what you call it. There's so much content out there, but there's been too much content since the dawn of the printing press. So this isn't new. There's always been too much content. So you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to tell a different message and basically make an impact on a small group of people? Most companies, they don't know what their differentiation is. And when they're targeting an audience, they go too wide. They might have 3 or 4 or 5 different types of audiences, and they go, oh, I have to have a broad message because I want to reach all my customers. Well, you're going to make a huge mistake. With all this competition, you have to go as niche as you possibly can. And I know it sometimes doesn't make sense, but you have to talk directly, like it was perfectly tailored, that content specific for that audience. So if you have, like, I'll give you, this is an example from a long time ago, but there was one of the largest software companies in the world, and they were out there doing a blog, and they started creating all these blogs out there and articles and sending them out to their customers. And I talked to the person running it, and they weren't having a lot of success. I said, Joe, what's going on? And I said, well, who are you targeting? Like, how many buyer personas, how many audience groups are you targeting? It's like, well, we have 18 different audience groups that we're targeting. I said, I've identified your problem. You can't be relevant to 18 different groups of people. You have to be specifically to one. So let's forget these 17. What's the most important one that you want to talk to right now? Is it your current customers? And what's your goal? Do you want them to be more loyal? Do you need new customers out there and new leads? Who are those people? What are their pain points? So we want to do that kind of information, and you figure that all out, and you create what's called a mission statement. So it's, okay, who am I sending this to? What's my message going to be? And what's the outcome? What do I want from them? Do I want to help them get a better job? Do I want to help them live a better life? And notice we didn't say anything about selling anything in there. This is all pure editorial messaging. So you have to figure that out. So anyone listening to this saying, oh, you want to do a newsletter or you want to do a podcast, I want you to go, okay, well, who am I targeting specifically? What's that message? Am I talking about baseball cards? Am I talking about sign balls and bats? You're talking about baseball. Are we talking about Major League Baseball? Are we talking about all sports? If you can get more specifically into the topic, you're going to be better. And then what's the outcome for that audience? You figure that out. That's one thing. Then it's all about consistently delivering through one channel. So you have to pick the one thing that you can be good at, which is a master of something, and you're going to deliver every day, every week, every month, every year. And I'd like to say it happens overnight, but you know this, it takes time to build an audience. It generally takes between 9 and 18 months to build an audience where they actually start to say, hey, I like this person, or I trust this company. So those are the two things. Differentiate through your mission statement, and then you have to deliver consistently over a long period of time. And if you do that, you'll be successful. But generally, Joel, somebody drops the ball on one of those two things. It's so simple. But people usually don't have the patience to wait. They'll go like 3 months and 4 months. Oh, I'm not getting enough leads. I'm not seeing enough data. I'm not getting enough sales. And they give up before they even reach the point where their audience can trust them even more than they do right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can really relate, because with this podcast, I remember one of the first pieces of advice I got when I started it in 2017 was, there's no answer to how often to do it or how long it's supposed to be. I mean, you can come up with a right or wrong answer over and over again, but you have to be consistent. That's right. And so I remember a good friend of mine said to me, if you want to do it once a week, make sure you do it every week. If you want to do it every other week, once a month, every day, whatever it is, you have to stick to that. I think it's the same thing for newsletters too, right? I mean, I was doing a monthly newsletter, and I think a lot of people go through this feeling. If you don't like that sort of oogie sales feeling, and I'll reiterate what you've said, Joe, is that you have yet to talk about sales, really. You're talking about content, relationships, value adds, and that way of building the relationship. But I never felt great about doing more than one newsletter a month, because I felt like I was bugging people. And then I had others say, you got to be on the radar more often. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to be on the radar more often, I got to give them something where when they open it up, that they're not like, oh, this is going to take me too long, or this is going to be a waste of my time. And so find the right length, find the right, consistency, and just do it. So I started doing it every week, and the open rates went up. Now, it might be too early. That's been over the last probably 6 months. But an interesting thing happened, and this isn't going to surprise you at all, but I would start to get a couple of calls, not saying, tell me more about your business, which I was never really promoting on there other than maybe a line, like if you want to reach out or something like that. But I'd hear from a couple of people that I'd networked with before and said, I just read your newsletter. I loved it. Hey, let's talk about doing something for this event or blah, blah, blah. the sale never came from me. But I think if they don't know to expect you and you're inconsistent with it, right? I mean, how much of that is the consistency piece?
Well, let's just say if you have a weekly newsletter and then you skip a week, you might have lost your audience forever. Like because there's so much other content out there. They're not going to wait for you. Like if you, like, for example, if for some reason you're watching your regular television show when we're back in the day, like appointment television, and then all of a sudden it's not there that week. Well, the next week I might forget about it or go somewhere else. But your point about like how often to send, you want to be consistent, but just know like you are battling against hundreds and hundreds of other horrible spammy emails out there. But everybody has their one or two. It's the one or two they always want to open because it's going to give them something of value. It's never too much, right? If it's valuable to them, if it's going to change their life for the better, they're going to want that piece of information. And that's what I always tell. It's like, don't you want to see your kids? You want to see your wife? You want to see the people that you love? Absolutely you do. And there's never too much. You always want to see them. It's the same thing for a great piece of content. But yeah, if you're worried about it, you're probably selling to them. Just back off with the sales and say, no, this is we're going to build a long-term relationship and do this really well. And you just want to, I would say, like for a newsletter, if you want to just talk about that type of tactic, I think weekly is wonderful. Every other week is great. You get to monthly, it's probably not frequent enough because then when it's so infrequent that when you send it, they probably think, what is this? They forgot. Is this spam or whatever?
Great point.
So I would say weekly or bi-weekly for a newsletter is probably where you want to be.
Two things before I get into my baseball-themed questions for a Cleveland Guardians fan, or I don't know, most Guardians fans still call them the Indians because they grew up with that, or I don't know, whatever.
I grew up as an Indians fan, and whatever. As long as they keep playing baseball in Cleveland, I'll take it.
They will, but as the legendary Tom Hamilton, the voice of the Cleveland Guardians, and you know that, told me on this podcast, he's been a guest and one of my favorite people in baseball. He didn't say it on the podcast, but I think he said something at one point. He goes, look, they love the Guardians or the Indians, whatever he said at that point. They love their team here. But you could stick a Browns helmet on the mound, and that's what they're going to talk about first and foremost. It is a Browns town. It's a football town first and foremost, which is funny because the baseball and for that matter, the basketball team have had a lot more success. I'll get into that with you in my final four questions because I know there are a lot of places we can go and you're going to have plenty of thoughts on it. I know that one. The two questions I have before I get to my baseball themed questions, a typical Goldberg tangent there. You mentioned AI. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer in AI. I'm using it left and right. I'm a believer that I have this phrase, or at least saying for myself, whatever I do on AI, especially if it's content creation, writing, whatever, it has to start and end with me. Meaning, don't just say, do this for me, give me a blog, do this for me. Like, if you're not the brains behind it, it's going to look like everyone else's. So my question to you is this: in this fast, rapid-paced world of AI that's affecting every one of us, whether we're using it or not, and I believe we all should be using it to some extent, how do we differentiate ourselves? We talked about making ourselves different, especially in the content world, in the B2B world, in the sales world. How do we make ourselves different if everybody's putting out, in theory, the same thing? I know they're not, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Don't forget who you are. What do you stand for? AI is going to let you do a lot more. It gives you, everyone gets a second brain, but we all stand for something. You got to make sure, like we talked before, what is your key differentiation? So use it for your AI assistant. I do the same thing too. I use it for ideation, for podcast episodes, for newsletter episodes. It's great, but the writing comes from me. It may help me edit, but at the end of the day, that is my voice. So don't let AI take your voice away from you, because it's just going to give you the most possible variable. Everyone's going to start sounding the same. My bigger concern, Joel, and probably for everyone listening to this, is I think we have a finite amount of time to create things as human beings before we're washed out by synthetic content. I believe we have 3 years. In 3 years, 99, if you look at any of the experts out there, they will tell you that 99% of the content out there between 3 and 6 years is going to be AI or synthetically created content. It's going to be very difficult for humans to break through in any way, shape, or form. The algorithms aren't going to need human creators anymore. Facebook's not going to need human creators. Neither is YouTube. I hope they will be, but I don't think they're going to need it for their business model. So I'm telling every business owner and every individual, I'm like, think like vinyl. We have the 1% opportunity as human beings. So vinyl, used to be big, then it went down to nothing, but it's held steady at that 1%. Like a lot of people still like vinyl. I think that's what it's going to be a human creator. There's going to be people out there that are, in the Wall-E movies, and they're just consuming content all day long, and they don't care what it is. And that's what we found out with the data is most people don't care that it's AI content or not. They just want to be entertained or informed. I think there's going to be a small percentage and an opportunity for us to be really differentiated as human beings, to really lean into what makes us crazy and weird as human creators and build an audience. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think if we look to build an audience, build a group of fans, even it may be a dozen, it might be 100, it might be 1,000 of those fans, so that we can build long-term human relationships, because I think that's where it's going to be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. It's going to be very hard to build human relationships in a digital sense, but I think we have an opportunity. So like with my book, Burn the Playbook, I'm giving speeches about it. I'm trying to create this sense of urgency, we have this chance right now in time. And in 3 years, I can't promise you if you create a newsletter or a book or a podcast that it's going to break through all the content. And I'll leave you with this so people get an idea what I'm talking about. 2 examples. One is I wrote a book in 2020 called Content Inc. It was about some of the things that we're talking about. It took me 9 months to do it. I used designers and editors and copywriters, and I used somebody to help me with the audiobook. 9 months start to finish. Amazon, with its authors right now, puts a cap of 3 books per day that they will accept. I want you to think about that for a second. 3 books per day. What does that mean? It means there's a lot of people out there creating a lot of books a day using AI. There's more books being created using AI right now on a daily basis, way more than human beings right now. So that's one. Let's go to music. Right now, there's an artist on the charts called Sienna Rose. Sienna Rose has 3 of the top 50 songs on Spotify right now. Sienna Rose is not real. Sienna Rose is an AI. People don't care. They like the music. For the last 12 months, we've had at least one AI-created artist on the top 100 Billboard charts for the last year. These things are happening right now. What is it going to be like when the majority of content out there is AI? So I think we have to work right now to say, look, for our business and for just as an individual and creating these human relationships, we need to do this and be creating instead of just managing all this AI. Now, if AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini can help you get there, I'm all for it. I have no problem using the tools so that we can create our voice and be better about it, be more proficient about it. But I think we've got a limited chance to do that right now.
Everything you just said scares the crap out of me. And it's not that I haven't thought of that, by the way. I just wasn't thinking 3 years. I'll say this, having 2 20-somethings like you, they've still seen what this side of it looks like. Now it's very clouded compared to the way we grew up. Their kids will know no other way. That scares the crap out of me, that the next generation, our grandkids, if and when that ever happens, will know this world that you're talking about. And so my fear is that we lose our ability to think. And people will go down that road because it's quicker and easier. I still think, and you hit on it, I was going to say it if you didn't, it all comes down to relationships and people. It always does. And that's the differentiator. You may not have as many as you did before, but that's the differentiator. And I tell my kids all the time, if you could sit down and look someone in the eye and go face to face, you're already ahead of most of the others.
Well, you said it well. So my newsletter, The Tilt, goes out to about 80,000 people, and I get about 50 or 60 people emailing me back after each issue. I am building real relationships with those people. Yeah. They're not bots. They're not made up. I build relationships with them. I go and speak. They ask me to go do events. I meet with coffee with these people. That's why I'm like, it doesn't make a lot of sense in some cases. Like, I'm going to create this digital thing to then build long-term human relationships, but it actually is a thing. So I think we have an opportunity to do that. And to your point, don't get worried if you don't have a huge audience. You could do this with 12 people, with 50 people, and you can make an impact on their lives and serve them in some way informationally, and it'll pay you back more than you'll ever know. So
80,001 now. I just subscribed. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
But it's a good point too. And then I'm going to get to my baseball theme questions that we all do this. Well, I only have this. Well, he owes this. I only have this. And it's like, you just got to do it and everything you're talking about. Mine's around 2,000. I feel like it should be a lot more, but we're going to work on that. And I don't know. I mean, maybe we're racing the clock here a little bit, but I still think keeping these good habits, doing the right things, going about it the right way, and evolving with time, which you've been able to do. The last question before the baseball theme questions is about the newest book, Burn the Playbook. So I think I saw one of the podcasts that you were on saying that this was the most important one. It's important for your kids, obviously for more than just your kids too. But I love this because we grew up at a time, I keep saying that, it makes me sound old, I don't know, but we grew up at a time where this is the playbook, this is how you do it. You can do this, you do this, you do this, and you do that. Now it's like, I don't know what the playbook is. And maybe that's a good thing, right? This is how you're supposed to study. This is how you're taught. This is, what's the next step and the next step. And now it's like the opportunities seem endless to me. What is the playbook now? And tell me about Burn the Playbook.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I wrote Burn the Playbook for my kids. Which if those of you that are listening to this have kids, sometimes it's tough to talk to them about, or sometimes they don't want to listen to you at all about, oh, Dad, you're saying all that stuff. Nobody cares. So I wrote it down in a book, and they were actually the first two that read my book, and it was great. Oh, wow. They reviewed it and the whole thing. So it did what it was supposed to do. They gave some great feedback. But the whole start of it is that all these systems that we were meant to believe were safe, like follow this career path, or this is how you invest financially, or this is how you get an education, all that has gone away. I mean, like if you just think about going to university, education right now, if I just want to learn, I can get 99.9% of the information available on the internet and free today. I mean, you can say, to do this or to be this doctor or whatever, but most things I can get for free. So is university still the place to get education, or am I going for credentials? So let's just say what it is, and we're going to do that. If you look at the career path, I was a part of a very large, successful media company where I saw hundreds of my friends get their retirement packages destroyed and get laid off. And some of them 20 years later still are having trouble finding a job because they said, I'm going to follow this path. The path is, I think, to your point, if you read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, which I recommend everyone read, meaning is a choice. So what are you curious about? What are you endlessly curious about? What audience do you really want to serve? Like, we want to put our meaning into those things, and you have a choice, and it's not what everybody else sees. It's what's in your heart. It's it's the people that are around you. You mentioned before, it's the human relationships. So what I'm talking about in the book, and I'm not, it's not a playbook, because I'm not saying burn the playbook with this playbook. I'm saying, what's important to you? What do you love? What are you passionate about? Who are the people that you want to serve? Go toward that. Don't go toward I want to make this money, or I want to do this, or those things that are fleeting. Because you and I both know, like, I've had a lot of people close to me who've passed away, and not one of them have been on their deathbed and saying, I wish I'd have worked longer, and I wish I'd have made more money. Not one of them said, I wish I would have spent more time with the people that I love. That's it. That's the only thing you get. Yeah. So figure out how you can do that. And so I kind of follow, it's funny. If you go through my book, every chapter has a little intro from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And when you say Think and Grow Rich, immediately people say, that's to get rich. It's to make a lot of money. No, it's all about finding your own meaning, and everybody's meaning is different. And don't let anybody tell you this is what's important. You have to go through that journey and figure out what's important. And so hopefully with the book, it's for anybody who's in the position of they don't know what they want out of life right now. So if you're a little bit like, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what my meaning is, I don't know what I need to be doing, it's a really good book to start getting you to ask the right questions about who you want to be in life.
I love it. Encourage everybody to get a copy of it, and it's really easy to find everywhere, including on your website. And we'll give all that information before we wrap up here and put it in the show notes, of course, and for the tilt and everything else. Let's go to my baseball themed questions. Great. Professionally speaking, what's the biggest home run that you've hit?
Well, if you're just asking me professionally, I'll give you that answer. But the number one reason is it was not professional. It's I found the most wonderful woman in the world, and I hate to say it, but it's completely true, because she's changed my life in so many different ways. But from a career standpoint, my wife and I, we owned our business. We were in this area called content marketing. And what we realized from some of the feedback we had was there was no physical event. There was no in-person event that got all these people together around the practice of content marketing. And I'd been traveling around the world at this time. This is back in 2010. And we realized, hey, maybe we take the big shot. Maybe we take the big swing at this thing. And I remember we said, okay, we're going to do this event. It's called Content Marketing World. And we sat down with our friends and I said, I'm going to do this event. We're going to bring it to all of all places, Cleveland, Ohio. We're going to do this big international event, knowing that we've never done events before and we didn't have a big audience, and we were going to make this thing happen. And honestly, our friends even laughed. They're like, Joe, what are you thinking? What are you doing? What is content marketing? Like, what, anything? Went ahead and did it. And lo and behold, the first event got 600 people. We were planning. We actually got a space at the Renaissance Hotel in Cleveland for 100 people. I'm like, oh, can we get 100 people to Cleveland?
Which is scary.
It's scary. It's really scary. And if those of you that do in-person events, they're very expensive because you got to put space down. You got like how many hotel rooms and whatever. The first event we did, we got 600 people. It was almost $1 million event. 4 years later, we got 4,000 people. It became the largest business event in Cleveland, Ohio. It still is today. We sold that event in 2016, but that event still today is the largest in-person content marketing event. And I just said, what the learning is to anyone listening is nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. If it's, and I think we sort of met on one of my posts that I wrote. It said, you got to put more balls in play. The more ideas you get out there, just try it. And if you believe in it enough, you get enough of these balls in play, one of them are going to hit, and content marketing will hit for us, and it's changed our life.
It was a good dual answer because I know your wife is involved in all of that as well. I always say professionally because every guest when I started the baseball theme questions would say their spouse, and I'm like, I don't doubt it, but everybody's saying the same thing. I need somebody else. But in your case, not that I have any say in this, I'm making an exception because you guys work together too. And, there's all that, but noted.
What's interesting is she was a social worker and I said, I have this idea. She's great at operations. I said, I'm a big picture guy. I'm the strategy guy. I'll go speak around the world. I'll do those things, but I need somebody to run the business. Yeah. And she left her job and her career to come along.
So cool.
It was great.
Yeah. That's like a grand slam. And, okay. Swing and a miss. And what did you learn from it along the way?
So the swing and the miss was right before Content Marketing World, actually. I was working at Penton Media, large publishing company. I was executive vice president, making six figures. Life was great. I left that to start this idea in content marketing, which was... It was basically the eHarmony for content marketing. We were trying to match up businesses who needed to tell their stories better, like we talked about that before, with agencies and journalists who could provide those stories, and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on this idea and got to the lowest point I think I've ever got career-wise, where basically started this business, and 18 months later, I was dusting off the old LinkedIn profile and shaping up the resume and basically said, I failed. This thing would not work. And I basically was going to give up. And if I didn't have my wife say, look, you are never going to be happy working for somebody. You better dig your heels in and figure this thing out. I would have probably been working a job and being completely unhappy at it. But it was a huge swing and a miss because we maxed out the credit cards. We had absolutely no money. The kids were like, I think 7 and 9 at the time. I'm like, my wife calls it the ramen noodle and bologna years, because that's basically all we were eating at the time. So it was a tough time, but of course I learned a lot. I mean, failures, no problem with a failure if you learn from it. So luckily I did learn.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Without a doubt. I think some of the best baseball players that I've been around manage failure better than the average human being because they can handle it and they learn from it. Small ball. You know what small ball is? They play good small ball in Cleveland, especially your Indians of the 90s, by the way, with the way they were able to do things. I mean, I never was there for that. I mean, I joined the Royals in 2008, but You know, I work with guys that played against those Indians teams, played against Kenny Lofton and all those guys. They said, man, that place was just used to be rocking. But I think the Royals and the now Guardians, they're good at the small ball, the little things. How about in your world, the real world, so to speak? What are the little things that add up to big results?
So we talked a little bit about it, but I think it's important. Like, so we were able to build a business that got to $10 million a year before we sold it. And we had a wonderful exit that ended up being about $25 million. And it all started with writing one article a day. I mean, literally, that's it. I would get 3-4 times a week. I would write an informational article to my audience about the practice of content marketing. And I will tell you this, Joe, first 9 months, I didn't have an audience. It takes a while. I think the only one that was reading my blog at the time was my mom, and she had no clue what I was talking about. But I'm putting it out there. I'm getting better as a writer. I'm putting it out there. And lo and behold, the only reason why we were able to build Content Marketing World is I did 2.5 years of doing an article almost every day. And we were able to build an audience of about 10,000 people that were just like, oh, Joe. It happened very slowly, like almost so slow you wouldn't even notice if you weren't paying attention. And then that built the audience up, and that initial audience became the jumping point for building all the products we did at Content Marketing Institute. So that's what I always like to tell people is like, look, if you really believe in this and you want to be known and you want to really build an audience out there, there's going to be a long time when you start this when nobody's going to be noticing. And that's the perfect time to mess up and to figure out what's your voice and your point of view, because nobody's paying attention. And then you'll start to make it over time, and you'll be like, oh, you'll get an email, or you'll get somebody texting you, or you'll get some comments on social media. You're like, oh, it's starting to build up and you're starting to make a difference. But it takes a long time to get there, but you have to do the work on a daily basis.
Love all of that. Really fits the whole theme of this episode. All right, let's round the bases with 4 final questions real quick. You gave us some great stuff, and I think Ashley does some amazing research too. So this one stood out to me as really unique and interesting. I go lighthearted on some of these. Eats mozzarella sticks in every state and or country he visits. What's going on here? I like cheese too, but
yeah, I have this thing for mozzarella sticks, and as I started,
they're great, by the way. But
I'll tell you what, yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm at like 26 states that I've had mozzarella sticks, and the weirdest story is that I was doing a presentation in Fargo, North Dakota. And I was only there for a couple hours, and I'm like, I need to check off North Dakota. Like, what am I going to do? And I went to this breakfast place, and they actually turned the fryers on for me at 9 o'clock in the morning to throw the worst mozzarella sticks that I've ever had. But you know what? Lean into your weird. That's what I say.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. And then make sure you drink a lot of water as well when you're doing this.
Have you had mozzarella sticks in Kansas or Missouri?
I have.
Okay, so I was going to say when I'm
in Kansas City, I'd rather have a steak. But
of course, or a barbecue or steak or whatever. Yeah. I was going to say, if you hadn't had either, you come to town and we'll just find a spot on each side of the state line, and you could knock 2 states out in about 2 minutes.
That's fantastic.
So, but you're already covered there. Okay. Second question, as we round the bases, what is it with the love of the color orange? And the second part to that, I know on your vest right now, you got the CLE and the orange there, but I think that's probably Browns related, but the color orange, and then the charity, I was reading about the speech therapy, which really stood out to me because my wife's been a speech therapist for her whole adult life. Tell me about all of this and where the color orange thing comes from.
Yeah, I'll try to. It's a long story, but I'll give you the real quick. When I first wanted to start a business, this was in 2005. This is my dream. I always wanted to start a business. I was playing with my kids in the pool. We were down on vacation in Florida, and there was this orange volleyball. And I held it. My wife was walking outside the pool. I was inside with the kids throwing them around, and I held it up to her and I said, when I start a business someday, this is going to be the color of the business, this orange color. And she said, your kids are going to drown. Like, pay attention to your kids. Would you just stop it for a second? And I remember that when I launched the business in April of 2007, orange was the color. And it was like no big deal. I would just go out and speak, do gigs and whatever. And the website was orange. It was not a huge deal, but orange was there. In 2009, I was asked to do a presentation in Brussels, Belgium, and they asked me to wear a black tuxedo. I said, I'll wear whatever you want. You're paying me to come over here. I'll speak. I'll wear whatever you want. I go ahead. I did the speech. I got off stage in my black tux, and 3 people came up to me. I'd never been to Brussels before in my life, and they said, why aren't you wearing orange? And I'm like, what? I had no idea I had branded myself and it differentiated me because of the orange color. And from that moment on, I went off the deep end in orange. Everything's orange. If you go into my closet and you look at it's like the briefcase scene in Pulp Fiction where he opens it up and it's this bright orange. That's my closet. I have an orange suit that I wear to events and things. It's just I just noticed that it differentiated me, and I'm always to everyone, if you've got something that people notice you by, lean into it. It can only help you. And then when we started our nonprofit, Orange Effect Foundation, our oldest was born on the spectrum, had a lot of speech delays. We went through that whole process. We were able to afford speech therapy and play therapy. And what we found out, and by the way, great, graduated from college, is doing wonderful, is in computers and IT. It's fantastic, but I found a lot of families can't afford this. Yeah. So we started the Orange Effect Foundation specifically for families who need speech therapy and can't afford it. So we're like the fundraising source of the last case scenario for people that don't have insurance and can't afford it. We will fund, and we've got grants going out right now in 41 states, including Kansas and Missouri. For Orange Effect Foundation. So it's just, it's near and dear to our heart. And it's a case that a lot of people don't realize is a big issue, especially with insurance and not helping these kids out. So it's really important.
Well, having been married to a speech language pathologist for many, many years, we understand it. And you're right. Not everybody has that kind of access. So kudos to you and your wife and everyone for doing what you're doing. It's important. Third question, I mentioned it before. I'll say it again. I'm lucky enough to travel the country. I know all these cities. I know more people on the baseball circuit in Cleveland and Minneapolis and Detroit and Chicago because that's within the division. Used to be 3 times a year staying in downtown Cleveland. Now it's 2 times a year. What do you love about Cleveland? Sometimes Cleveland can get a bad rap. Maybe it's weather related. Cleveland's not New York or LA. Neither is Kansas City for that matter. But I know this much. Anyone that lives in Cleveland loves their hometown. What do you love so much about it?
Well, I think that's the good and the bad, right? We love Cleveland so much, and we've got so much like CLE. Like we all wear almost to a fault, where we're like, we don't care. Is Cleveland against the world? Whatever. What I love about Cleveland specifically for baseball, they're very like they are in Kansas City. These are great baseball fans. They understand the history of baseball. They understand the way it's supposed to be played. We still believe in the bunt. We really love it. We love the stolen base. We, dig it out. That's why we love Jose Ramirez. It sort of encompasses everything. I always go for the extra base, play hard. And I know what you said before about the Browns, and you're probably right. Cleveland is probably first and foremost a football town. But I think more people will cry when the Indians Guardians win the World Series than the Browns win the Super Bowl. I think there are way more baseball fans in this town. I mean, we were one of the original teams all back down. I mean, you've got your Satchel Paige stuff in the back with the Monarchs and stuff. I mean, of course, he played with the Indians back in '48. I mean, we love our baseball here, and we've been so close. I mean, from the 3-1 defeat to the up 3-1 to the Cubs in 16, and then I saw it firsthand and losing 95 and 97, where we should have won in 97 with one pitch. It's those types of things. We're so close.
I know.
But they're good baseball fans.
They are. They're great people. I love going to Cleveland. Last question, my walk-off. What's on the bucket list now? It feels like you've done everything.
You know what? I don't know. I got a lot of we're traveling right now. We're going to see places and people. I'm really focused right now over the next 12 to 24 months into spending time with our family, our loved ones. We got another trip scheduled to go see my family in Sicily. But the next most recent one is my youngest, who's 22 now. We always do the spring training, and we've been going down to Goodyear, Arizona. And this year we're going to go and I think we just planned it actually this week. We're going to go down to the World Baseball Classic and see the final.
Cool. That's great.
In Miami. So we're excited about that. So instead of spring training, we're going to do that. And we're hoping for a Japan-United States set up there.
That'd be
So
fun.
we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the matchup we want to see. So we'll see if we do. So that'd be fun.
Now, if you get the DR, you'll see Jose Ramirez. So either way, you're going to see some good stuff.
That's right. It's
Joe,
gonna be fantastic.
Can't thank you enough for spending time. I know that your time is in demand and you're all over the place, but if people want to subscribe to the newsletter, look for the book, and there are a million ways to do that, but go to joepulizzi.com. You can learn more about the foundation. You'll see a lot of orange on there and much more as well. I'm telling you, everybody's going to learn from Joe if you're not already. And hopefully I see you in Cleveland at some point this summer, and maybe we can connect in person. But really appreciate you spending time on Rounding the Bases, and thanks for all your insight.
Joe, I loved it. Thanks so much for having me.
Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.